Good morning, and thank you all for being here, for joining us at what is called the Emergency Centralized Response Center. You'll affectionately hear it referred to as the ECRC going forward. But this is a place where we are coordinating the work that must get done in order to address our homelessness crisis. And we're here to launch the Los Angeles County Homeless Services and Housing Department because we know that the status quo is failing. And doing nothing was not an acceptable option. Supervisor Barger and I took a hard look at the system. We audited it, we asked tough questions, and we confronted a simple truth. The public was paying billions of dollars without clear accountability on the results. That ends now. This new department represents a structural change in how Los Angeles County delivers homeless services, with one line of responsibility, clear outcomes, and clear oversight. And we're already seeing results. The department has already delivered $45 million in efficiencies, and we're using the Housing for Health contracting model, considered the gold standard in how we do service delivery. We also are using the lessons learned from the audit that we conducted of LAHSA. So from day one, we are using financial best practices to make sure that your dollars are accounted for. This center, the ECRC, is what change looks like on the ground. One system, one response, faster coordination, no more duplication. People want to know that we are using their tax dollars smarter, and we are. Today also marks the launch of the LA Regional Homeless Count. As the region measures the crisis, Los Angeles County is fixing what hasn't worked. 1 year ago, we promised residents we would change how this work gets done. And today, we are delivering on that promise. Starting now, our director, Sarah Mahin, and her team are your point of contact, your resource, and your source for answers. We're launching at a difficult moment with the federal cuts, the end of COVID funding at the state, and tighter resources. We know all of that contributes to the challenges that we see on the ground. But that makes accountability and efficiency more urgent, not less. With that, I'm proud to welcome my partner in this work, Supervisor Catherine Barger.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments, Supervisor Horvath, and I could not agree more. Accountability is alive and well as it relates to how this county is going to do work toward ending the homeless crisis. The launch of Los Angeles County's new Department of Homeless Services and Housing will have a tangible, and for many of our constituents, a visible impact. We are enhancing and streamlining all the tools in our toolbox to provide housing and homeless services with more strategy and with a greater urgency. Increasing our effectiveness requires us to coordinate and to centralize our efforts. That's exactly why we are launching this department, and that's exactly the task at hand for the Emergency and Centralized Response Center we're standing in now. The center dispatches outreach teams who are dedicated full-time to helping the unsheltered individuals on our streets and the families with the help for them to get off the streets and into interim and ideally into permanent housing. These teams are out in the field connecting those without shelter to health and mental health services and to housing referrals. Launching this new department doesn't just mean a new name with the same services we've always provided. It is a more effective, connected outreach that gets more people out of encampments and into housing with the wraparound services they need. And I emphasize that, with the wraparound services that they need to keep them housed. And when we speak about the wraparound care, it's important to mention that our new department is much more integrated with our county and all the departments involved. This will help outreach teams urgently respond to calls for service, to be able to assess the physical and mental well-being of our unhoused neighbors. And this urgency is what people on our streets need, and quite frankly, that they deserve. And it's what our 10 million residents deserve to see in their communities. It is clear that Los Angeles County residents are invested, both emotionally but also financially, in this work. Measure A passed overwhelmingly, ensuring a steady stream of funding to put this mission of housing and health services into action. We owe it to them to be clear about how their funding is being used and for them to see the impacts of this work in action with their own eyes. The new department has systems in place that make our budgeting transparent so residents will know their tax dollars are being put to work effectively. I hear from community members often they want to help those on the streets, but aren't sure where to turn. I encourage our residents to call 211 when they encounter an encampment or person in need, and the team right here in the Emergency and Centralized Response Center will engage within minutes to begin coordinating outreach teams in the field. This new department is setting the standard of urgency and responsiveness. The Department of Homeless Services and Housing means accountability. I emphasize that, means accountability, something that Supervisor Horvath and I said from day one is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And it also provides stability and dignity for those that are on our streets. I will remain committed to this work as we move toward a future where homeless services and housing are not just goals, but they are promises that are fulfilled. Thank you. Sarah, are you too?
Thank you, Supervisor Barger. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Mahin, and I am the inaugural director of the new LA County Department of Homeless Services and Housing. Thank you so much for joining us here today at the Emergency Centralized Response Center. We know that unsheltered homelessness is one of the toughest and most heartbreaking challenges facing our region. On any given night in 2025, roughly 47,000 people slept outside, on our streets and in cars and makeshift encampments across Los Angeles County. Starting tonight, thousands of volunteers will fan out across the county for our annual homeless count. This point in time count provides crucial information about homelessness, and it is also one of the most visible examples of people coming together to help address this crisis. The Emergency Centralized Response Center, or ECRC, was created in 2023 to coordinate outreach activities and other efforts to support unsheltered individuals and families across LA County. By placing key partners together under one roof, ECRC helps us move faster and in a more coordinated way, getting people the resources they need when they need them. Our lines are open. Anyone experiencing homelessness or concerned about homelessness in their community can reach out to us online anytime. Like ECRC, the LA County's new Department of Homeless Services and Housing is built on the idea of bringing everyone together under one roof. Mm-hmm. By consolidating funding, services, and staff that were previously spread across different departments and entities, we are making the county's response clearer, faster, and more accountable to the people and to the communities that we serve. Together, with our partners, our mission is to lead a unified, countywide response to homelessness, one that integrates housing, health, and social services. Our vision is a just and compassionate system of care that prevents and ends homelessness for people across LA County. Our goal is urgent and simple. Move people into housing and deliver the services they need, all the while earning trust in the communities that we serve. I want to acknowledge that this department is launching during a time of real uncertainty and changes in the federal policies that are weakening our social safety net. We are facing a funding shortfall for homeless services due to losses in one-time federal and state funding, a reduction in sales tax revenue, and rising costs. Cuts are painful for everyone, but we are making thoughtful and responsible decisions. We are prioritizing the most vulnerable people, and the programs that we know work. And we're actively working with our partners to secure other funding and solutions to fill gaps. The people who work in homeless services are dedicated, resilient, and resourceful. We are no strangers to hard work or to difficult challenges. And we know that we can get through tough times by coming together with our incredible community. That brings me to the vital work that our community plays. Community engagement has been central to the design of this new department. From the beginning, our goal has been to create a strong foundation rooted in collaboration and effectiveness and mutual accountability, because we all have a role to play in solving homelessness. We are bringing the Department of Homeless Services and Housing to life in partnership with residents, with jurisdictional partners, with service providers and frontline staff, with faith-based communities, and most importantly, with our unhoused neighbors who are counting on us all. As we kick off this new department and homeless count tonight, it's important to remember that solving homelessness requires everyone working together. We will keep it open lines of communication. We will learn what works and what doesn't so that we can better serve our communities. I want to acknowledge the many partners who serve in the ECRC every day. The City of Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and the county departments of mental health, public and social services, public works, military and veterans affairs, and the sheriff's department, all together under one roof. I also want to thank Supervisor Barger and Supervisor Horvath for authoring this motion to form this department and for your leadership, support, and ongoing commitment to this work. At the end of the day, building this new department gives us an opportunity to do work differently, more strategically, more collaboratively, and more effectively. We will face challenges head on by working closely with our partners and in our communities, and we will advance services and solutions that truly work. Above all, we will center the dignity and needs of the people that we're here to serve. Thank you for joining us here today. I look forward to working with all of you as we move this important work forward. The people of LA are counting on us. And we're happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll have the supervisors join you also, very front. And we can go ahead and, I think that's our hand over here.
Are there any questions? Okay.
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
So one of my questions is, the homeless count is happening tonight. My
Yes.
understanding is that LAWSA is still overseeing the count.
Yes.
How would you, any and all of you, describe the relationship between this new entity and LAWSA? There's been seemingly tension over the, there's the defunding of LAWSA. Where does that relationship stand right now? And even tonight, how collaborative are you guys being with count?
So the new CEO of LAWSA has been present at our county board meetings as we've been talking about Measure A dollars, the standing up of this new department, the coordination that happens through the ECRC. She's been very present, visible, and engaged with us both at our public meetings and behind the scenes. So we really appreciate her collaboration and coordination. As we've been trying to transfer staffing, we've also, our CEO in the county has been working with her to understand how we can transition staff from LAWSA into the county for the roles that we need to fill. And so that's required ongoing coordination, collaboration. We've actually had to place county staff inside LAWSA to untangle the funding and understand how we get it all back. So that has caused some tension because people have been asking questions for a long time that deserve answers, and we're trying to answer them as a county. We aren't just standing up a new department to take all the problems that existed at LAWSA and bring them over here. We are trying to untangle the mess and make sure that we're starting out with a clean slate and doing the things that work. So that can cause issues. But we do know that there has been coordination. I plan to participate in the homeless count later this week, and I know that each office on the Board of Supervisors has their own way of collaborating in our respective districts. So where there can be collaboration and where it makes sense, there will be. And where we have to drill down and get clear answers for the public that are long overdue, we're going to do that too.
And I would just say that it's not an either or. LASA plays an important role, and never was it questioned that they were not going to continue with the point-in-time count.
That's
so
right.
that we've collaborated from day one. And to Supervisor Horvath's point, when you are bringing money in, there is a little bit of tension because what you're doing is you're redefining what LASA's role is going to be, which is a COC. Very important job. So that's why it's not an either or. They have an important job to do. It's important to collaborate with us. Sarah mentioned it, that they are going to be a part of this group, this entity that we're creating. So they're not going away. They're just going to be able to focus on really what they were set up to do, and that is the COCs.
Are you going to their event tonight?
To LASA's, the one on Skid Row, because I know they're throughout the entire county. I don't know who asked that.
David.
You did?
You know, voters
Wait,
approve.
wait, wait. I want to hear.
Yeah, well, I was not planning, but I talked to Supervisor Horvath just now, and I'm going to find out where it is. It's in, I think, the 1st District, but I will find out. But both Supervisor Horvath and I have participated every year in the point-in-time count throughout the county, while it's, from what I understand, taking place on Skid Row. Our count takes place throughout the entire county, and I'm very present in my district as it relates to the point-in-time count. And I
Same.
know I can speak with Supervisor Horvath the same thing.
Sarah, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I can add,
And then we'll go
Yeah.
over here.
add a little bit. So,
Here in the-
yeah, I think, as the supervisors mentioned, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority is going to continue to be an incredibly important partner for the county. They are the lead for the continuum of care, which means they're the lead for the homeless count in most of the county. There's 3 other continuums of care in the county as well. And also with homeless management information system. And HSH has been coordinating on the count specifically with LASA really closely, as the county historically has done. So we have been working with LASA. There's special tracks and areas where only sort of experienced special teams can go and do the count. So we've been coordinating with them to get the outreach teams out to be helping to count those tracks and make sure that their coverage. We've been coordinating really closely with LASA around where there's the greatest need for volunteers and which deployment sites don't have them, so that we can make sure that we get county staff and other volunteers signed up there. And I'll be counting in Silver Lake tonight.
Steve, go ahead, and then I'll work my way back. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Steve Scadillo, SCNG. I'm just curious if the supervisors wanted to comment on how this is more efficient. I mean, you went from the county CEO's homeless initiative to this department, but you also still have LASA. Seems like you're adding levels of government. And how is it more efficient? And also, I might want to ask if, you know, you're adding, what, 1,000 employees to this department? Like one of the largest departments in the county of Los Angeles. So is that efficient, and can you maybe elaborate on that?
So before the creation of both the ECRC and this new department, the work of homelessness in Los Angeles County, just on the county side, was done over 14 different departments. That lack of transparency and coordination contributed to why we didn't have clear answers on how dollars were being spent. So I absolutely believe that bringing that work under one umbrella, where there are clear lines of sight into the work that's being done in collaboration with this center, which is bringing together all of those departments, so everybody has a voice as the calls are coming in and triaged in real time, that actually does coordinate people better. It reduces duplication of services. I know that you're going to take a tour so they can explain to you exactly how that's being done, but it actually is consolidating the work that's being done. It's consolidating the dollars that we are spending on it, and it's making sure that the right kind of service is meeting the moment for the issues that are showing up on our streets. And I've had the privilege of touring almost half of the Los Angeles City Council members through the ECRC here, and they have been providing their input as to how they want to see this coordinating center work with them in the city. We've had individual cities and COGS also come and provide input. So this is a one-stop shop where all of that work can be done in one place. Before, it was spread out, diffuse, and unaccountable, and that is the change that people have been longing for.
And you know, I would just say that for a long time it is LASA blames the county blames the city blames LASA. We all blame each other. Accountability now ends with the board. We are bringing in the money as it relates to the measure, and it's important for us to recognize that the buck is going to stop with us, and this department is going to allow one point of contact and transparency And then it's gonna allow us to pivot where we see things are not working, acknowledging, owning, and changing. And that's something that was not happening. We were not nimble. We were gonna be far more nimble, in my opinion, as it relates to how we deal with the homeless crisis. So, you know, stay tuned. I mean, this is a work in progress. It's imperfect, but at least we are setting the tone for accountability, something that has not been done prior to this department being created.
Thank you.
Leo.
Right here.
Well, Leo had a question too.
Oh,
Go ahead, Leo.
Look, you know, a lot of voters and taxpayers out there, when it comes to this homeless crisis in LA County and throughout the city, Measure H passing roughly a decade ago, a lot of voters and taxpayers they're just about ready to hurl at the lack of transparency as you talked about, and accountability. What do you say to them right now? Because they're gonna look at this and go, oh God, more of the same crap. What do you say to them to ensure them that that this is finally coming together after all the money that's been spent and money that folks have lost pouring into this crisis?
Well, we stepped up and did an audit on their dollars being spent. And that audit revealed far too many problems that have gone unanswered for too long, which is why we created this department with the kind of accountability that voters called for when they passed Measure A. After they passed Measure H, they passed Measure A. I don't think because they wanted to invest more money. They want to see the results. And Measure A was Measure A for accountability. And that's what this department is based on. It is the financial best practices that are long overdue. It is the cornerstone program that has provided the most significant, consistent, and lasting results for homelessness in Los Angeles County for more than a decade. So it's not something that was pulled out of thin air. It's not an idea that is just sort of out there and we're crossing our fingers. It has a track record of success, and we are scaling up something that works. We are defunding something that hasn't worked. We know that LAHSA has not delivered the results that the region has wanted to see for a very long time. We're bringing those dollars into the county for direct oversight by this board, and we're bringing all of our partners into this space. You are physically in the space where the work is being done. We're not hiding the work that's being done. We're showing you how we're making a brand new start, and we're inviting everyone in to make sure that the new start actually leads to the results that people want to see in their neighborhoods.
Why has it taken so long to get to this point? And I know Supervisor Barger has been frustrated for a while.
Well, Leo, I don't know that it's taken so long. I mean, I think we've been taking steps, and I know Supervisor Horvath and I, when we approached this idea of creating a department, it was about accountability. The Blue Ribbon Commission put forth a document that outlined the fact that there was fragmented and a system that really didn't have accountability as a whole, and many cities felt disenfranchised. LA City is ground zero, no question about it, the largest number of unhoused, but there are 87 other cities that feel disenfranchised. And this allows us an opportunity to look at this holistically, recognizing that LA City is one of 88 cities. And so I would argue that this has been a work in progress, and today is about really accountability beginning within within the housing department, the homeless department, but also recognizing it's bringing all the departments together. Sarah mentioned all the departments involved. We now have a one-point touch point as it relates to how our departments are going to work together to address this crisis on our streets.
right here.
Just a little bit more on LAHSA leading this effort tonight. Alex Rosier with NBC. You know, Supervisor Horvath, you acknowledge LAHSA's problems. They're leading the one-time count tonight. Why should people believe the results?
Well, they are continuing to provide this service for the region. It is part of the continuum of care responsibility that actually the federal government requires in order for a region to get funding from the federal government. Longer term, if we see that there aren't results happening as LAHSA is scaled down and focused on the things that it's supposed to do, if it doesn't deliver the results, we always have the ability to make that change. But right now, what we're hoping is that being focused on the things that they have set out to do, that they are uniquely charged to do, that they will have that focus and be able to deliver the results that people need to see.
Hi everyone, I'm so sorry. We're going to take Daisy's question next. He's had his hand up for a bit.
We also have Fox in the back that had their hand up a while ago.
Okay, we'll
Can you go after Fox?
I'm just wondering, how is the money gonna be tracked this time? Are you able to point to, you know, how the money will be tracked and that accountability will be held in this department?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so having one department actually makes the tracking much easier, and it gives us much clearer line of sight into where all the funding goes. So we've been, over the last 6 months, been actually working on a process to develop a spending plan for the Measure A dollars and working with the community through that. That's going, and that's been very transparent, very engaging with the community. We had public town halls with 1,000 people joining and providing input and feedback as we were developing that budget. That's going to the Board of Supervisors for their vote and consideration February 3rd. Again, another really public way for everyone to understand how those dollars will be spent. And again, that the board is taking responsibility and accountability for that. Similarly, with other funding that our department will administer, that goes through the typical county budget processes with a lot of transparency, public presentations around it. And then we put into place some dashboards, and we're getting ready to launch more, again, around this transparency and accountability. So we have system level goals and metrics that have been set. That we're trying to drive towards. That includes the work that HSH is doing, as well as all of our other regional partners. Those are posted already on our website, and you can and are updated on a quarterly basis, so you can see how many people are moving off the streets, how many people with serious mental illness and substance use are going into housing, and we'll continue to roll out that kind of information in a really transparent way, so people can see not just where the dollars are going, but how those dollars are delivering results.
One specific example, if I might, while Supervisor Barger and I were serving on the LAHSA Commission, Council District 3 in the city of Los Angeles was using their discretionary funds to fund something that if they had worked through the county's Department of Mental Health, they wouldn't have had to use those discretionary dollars. We could have billed them back. It would have been a smarter use of dollars. It would have been the right allocation for service provision, which should come from the county, not from a city paying for it. And that kind of coordination was missing. Now, under one umbrella, that kind of work can be done more clearly, more effectively, and more cost effectively. And that's really, I think, for people who are wondering where their tax dollars are going, that's the kind of result they want to see.
Okay, I was wondering, there was a lot of talk a few minutes ago about the cuts that you are envisioning. Can you talk about how those cuts are going to affect Pathway Home in particular? To what percentage of Pathway Home is going to be reduced? What does that translate into in terms of actual encampment operations?
Yeah, I'll share a little bit about this, and have some experts here at Pathway Home who could do some follow-up conversation afterwards if you want to get into more details. In the spending plan that we're recommending to the Board of Supervisors, there is funding for Pathway Home, actually more funding than there was last year from Measure A and Measure H to Pathway Home. But what's happening to Pathway Home is that we've launched it using one-time funding. And that one-time funding is no longer available. And so with the funding that we currently have available, we anticipate that the program will be ramping down in size. We use right now motels to provide the interim housing where people who are in encampments come off the street and move into motels. We will be reducing the number of motels that we have, and we estimate that the number of operations related to using motels will decrease from 30 to 10 a year. However, and again, this is looking at how we can do things more efficiently, we're looking at other ways that we can be supporting encampment resolution activities. We can use our existing stock of interim housing, most of which is congregate, and do some targeted work to be continuing to support encampment resolutions, but at a reduced cost using this more efficient model of interim housing.
So basically, people will have less chance to go into hotels, and really the main option will be congregate?
We'll be using some motels, and then we'll be continuing to do operations and be using congregate, as well as other opportunities, other types of housing that we can connect people to.
Does this department have the power to hold other organizations accountable who are slacking, not doing what they're supposed to do?
Yeah,
Tracking the money.
there's a few different things that we do. So, and ways that we can do accountability. So the most direct one is agencies that we contract with. to deliver services. So we provide really robust monitoring and oversight over the services that our contracted service providers do. We're bringing over the models from Housing for Health to HSH to do that, which means that we're not just regularly looking at data, but we actually are on the ground looking at the quality of services and providing technical assistance. So at the sort of contract level, we have multiple layers of accountability there. But the bigger thing, and I talked about this in my earlier remarks, is that homelessness takes all of us coming together. And accountability is to the county, to our contracted providers, it's to our 88 cities. And they have responsibilities in this too. And so that's really how we need to be looking at this from a regional approach. We all have things and resources that we need to be delivering upon. And through this department, the county's better positioned to make sure that we're being accountable for our resources, and through some of the work that's been done around regional governance, to have a space where we're all holding each other accountable.
Are you able to bring down the hammer if you find unscrupulous individuals who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing?
With,
you do that?
Absolutely, with services that we contract out, absolutely.
And Measure A also empowered a body called the Executive Committee on Regional Homeless Alignment. Supervisor Barger and I serve on that body. That is a regional body which also has elected officials from the city of Los Angeles, from surrounding cities, and representation from the governor's office right at the table to take into account how dollars are being spent. And that is the body that will reallocate those dollars, because Measure A has invested new dollars directly into each and every city in Los Angeles County. So if those cities aren't using their dollars, that's a place where we will reallocate them. If the service providers aren't delivering results, that's a place where we can reallocate the dollars. It is directly empowered by Measure A, and we intend to use that power for accountability.
So basically, when it comes to dealing with the homelessness crisis throughout the county and the city, there's a new sheriff in town, right? And you folks are it?
That's it.
Look,
Right here in front.
get it done.
Yeah. The draft spending plan for this new department calls for about 15% of funding to go towards administration. Now that seems like a big increase from the 5% LASA was spending on administration. Can you help me understand the difference?
Yeah, I actually think there's some numbers that are mixed up there. So under the Measure A spending plan, there's less than 6% that's recommended for administrative costs. There's additional costs that are related to staffing and programmatic staffing that are delivering services directly to people who are experiencing homelessness and running those programs. So the administrative costs are actually under 6%. When you look at both the program staffing and the administrative costs, between the current fiscal year and what we're recommending for next year, there's actually about $3.5 million less money. When you look at the funding that was going to LASA, the Homeless Initiative, and Housing for Health versus what's going to HSH. So it's another area where we're actually seeing some efficiencies in the total cost of staffing as well as in our administrative costs through this consolidation.
When I was looking at the numbers this morning, it seemed like LASA was spending about $45 million on administration. Now it's up to like 98. What am I missing? What am I not understanding?
I'm not sure what numbers you're looking at, so maybe we can look at that afterwards together.
Can I just ask a follow-up to Alex's question earlier about the numbers? There was discrepancies with when the RAND Corporation did their own study of some of the SPA areas. I know it wasn't the countywide count. 30% differences in some instances between what the PIT count found and what the RAND Corporation found when they counted. Just in reference to the question about concerns about whether these numbers are going to be accurate that we get from the count of the next few days. Because obviously that then determines how much money we get from HUD and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, I've said all along, this is not a perfect science. I know in my district up in the Antelope Valley, last year, LASA used drones because we knew there were people living in the desert that were not being counted, so the number went up. And it's a mandate by the federal government for us to document how many are unhoused. So I think between the RAND and the point in time count, we have to fall on a number. But I don't get hooked on that number because at the end of the day, I use my eyes to dictate what's going on in the street, and my eyes don't lie. And when I see what's going on in certain areas within the county, I recognize that while the point in time count is important for us to draw down federal resources, we have a job to do, and that is really one of the reasons why I was so invested in looking at creating this department, because I felt like it was status quo, and status quo is not working. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, and I would just say too, the question is mostly for LAHSA and what they're going to be doing differently. And I think at least my appointee on the commission has been driving home that they have to operate differently in order to deliver results that do engage the public's trust. As a board of supervisors, we'll also be watching to see if that change has actually come to LAHSA now that their focus and scope of what they're doing has been narrowed. Hopefully that's where they've been focusing their time, effort, and energy, and that's what we will see. We know over the past couple of years we've been trending in the right direction, but if we keep up at this pace, it's going to take more than 300 years for us to solve the crisis, which is absolutely unacceptable. By bringing everybody together under one roof, we can scale solutions, we can move faster, we can understand the needs that are out on the street and make sure that we are deploying the right kind of teams instead of sending 4 different kinds of teams to the same encampment people watch and lose faith that any sort of change is going to happen. That's the difference that you will see with the kind of coordination we're doing now with the county.
As you try to track where all the money's gone, do you have any idea how much of it has gone into a black hole? Just a rough estimate. How many millions and millions of dollars are just out there?
Define a black hole.
Boy, that's hard to do when it comes
Well,
to.
no, I mean, I'll let Sarah answer, but one of the things, Leo, that Supervisor Horvath and I saw when we sat on LAHSA is these contracts coming forward. And then we find out that in one of the contracts, I think you remember, it was a house and there was no one living in it, yet we were paying thousands of dollars a month to house the unhoused in a home that was no one was verifying that it was even being used for that. That is when we said something has got to change. And that's when, the finger pointing goes on. No longer, the finger pointing is pointing here, the board. And working with Sarah to make sure that things like you talk about a black hole. Are there going to be people trying to defraud? Absolutely. It happens each and every day within government across the board. But that does not mean you accept it. You look at what's going on and you have accountability in place. You do audits, you verify that in fact the dollars being used to work toward ending homelessness are being used just for that.
Well said. Thank you.
I'd like to go back to one more thing. Supervisor Horvath, she had remember when you brought in all the providers, Copics and LA Family, and they all said what horrible job LAHSA was doing. They weren't getting paid, they didn't get their money to put their people on the street, they were using their own credit cards to actually pay. I mean, that was just one of the things that the audit pointed out, and it was from their own lips. I mean, is that going to be fixed, and is that still LAHSA's responsibility?
On the county side, we did fix that. What LAHSA needed was all agencies who were funding those contracts to provide that fix. And now that the county is taking a lot of that contracting and the homeless service provision back under our umbrella, we can use that fix and make sure that those problems that contributed to hundreds of thousands of dollars of accumulated interest are no more. That has to be a thing of the past. Every dollar that we have is more precious because of the one-time dollars that we have lost from the state and federal government to do this work. We have to use every dollar smarter, and we have to make sure that we're showing results so people actually believe that the work that we're doing can bring change into their community. So that kind of change that the county initiated, we had that conversation at our table. We brought that change to LAHSA. We didn't see it throughout the agency, and now we brought that work back into the county so we can make sure that change is how we proceed going forward.
So Supervisor, is it going to happen, or is it started to happen? I'm not clear.
Yeah, it happened when the contracts were at LAHSA, and now contracts are coming back to the county because the new county department will be overseeing those contracts. So the best practices that we employed as a county and how we used funding with LAHSA, we are employing those best practices that came out of those tough conversations in the new department, and Sarah can speak to details.
How does the city feel about what you folks are doing, taking control of certain things to make sure things get done?
I think it's a mixed bag. I care about what my residents want to see. I care about the results that we need to see in our communities. I do care about coordination and collaboration, and that's why I've invited every elected leader in Los Angeles City to come and hear what is happening and invite them to be active participants in the work that is happening in the Emergency Coordinated Response Center here.
Why aren't they here now?
You can ask them, but you can ask them why they're not here. But I do know that the city of Los Angeles, some of their departments are represented here, and we've had, as I mentioned, at least 6 city council members have come. Just this morning, the city controller indicated he's eager to come over here. I mean, that kind of collaboration, we don't need LAHSA to collaborate. We need elected officials who take responsibility and accountability to heart, and that's exactly what we're doing. And I appreciate everyone in the city of Los Angeles who has stepped up to say this is a new day and we have to work differently.
Here's the question. 2 years ago, voters were asked to basically double how much they're paying. Measure A, double it. Within months of that thing going into effect, we hear the county saying, we have to do these reductions and they're terrible to homeless programs. Why should any voter ever vote for a tax increase again? Because it was effectively a doubling of the revenue, right?
It's not a doubling of the revenue to the county at all, and I think that's the big, and I want to make sure that we get this really right, because I want to answer your question, and if you can get it out into the world, because we've been saying this from the county, and so this is exactly the issue. Yes, the half-cent sales tax was a doubling from a quarter cent. A significant portion of that funding goes to La Casa, which is a separate body that is charged with building housing. They get that funding allocation. The new funding on the services side went directly to cities. Each city has their own funding source now to do service provision. The county funding stream has basically stayed flat. We are basically getting the same amount of money from the ballot measure, and the costs have increased in terms of how we provide that service. So we've had to be smarter with the dollars that come to the county's allocation. If there are services that cities want to see continued in their communities, we'll work with them and use their allocation of funding to do that, because we know not every city is going to be able to use those dollars and administer them on their own. They might need the county's help, and we're ready to provide that. But more funding, you're absolutely right, did come into the system, but it is also a sales tax measure. Sales tax is down, and the match that we were able to use from the county on those sales tax dollars for service provision for one-time dollars from the state and federal government is no more.
But didn't you sign off on the cost increases? Wasn't that an act the county actually did to pay more?
I'll let Sarah answer that, but the providers came to us. In my district up in the Antelope Valley, they were subsidizing through a line of credit, and were getting charged an interest rate that, quite frankly, was obscene in order to pay their bills, because they said that the amount that they were getting reimbursed per bed was not enough. So this board took action to do one-time reimbursement, recognizing that if these providers go out of business, the housing side of it is gone. And I can speak specifically to the Antelope Valley. That was my greatest fear. And so we had to make tough decisions that relates to how much we pay, and it had to cover their actual cost. And to the question that was answered about accountability, we did an audit to make sure that that dollar amount was accurate. So we did make that decision. That decision was made based on our providers coming to this board and stating across the board, that they were bleeding money and that they could not continue if in fact the rate was not increased. So that was a tough decision this board made. Flash forward to today. As Supervisor Horvath said, the La Casa side is for prevention, housing. That is what they are working on. That is where Sarah's coordinating with them as it relates to that side of it. The quarter cent that we get now has to be, recognizing that revenue's down, we have to make decisions on where is the best use of limited resources. We are not taking for granted the fact that our voters voted for this measure. But we also recognize that we need to make sure that we get the best bang for our dollar as it relates to addressing what's going on in the street. And I don't know if Sarah, you want to add on to that.
No, I think
Okay.
And on that note, we're gonna go ahead, we really wanna get you out and showing you how the work is actually done. We'll have some time for one-on-one conversations afterward. But I'd like to hand it over to my colleague in the back of the room, Victor Hinderleiter. There he is. He's gonna walk us through what the ECRC process looks like.
Can you come up here?
Yep. We warmed him up for you.
Hi, good morning everyone. Victor Hinderleiter, and for the LA County Homeless Services and Housing Department, I oversee our Emergency Centralized Response Center. So anyone who's interested, we'd love to walk you through the Emergency Centralized Response Center, meet some of the staff who's here, and some of our co-located partners from other county departments and other agencies.